Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's art-related video, I'm going to demonstrate for you my approach to starting a Zentangle style piece of art. And I recently posted on my short clips this old piece I had left intentionally incomplete just to show you what it looks like as it's being built across the page essentially. This is a very organic process and there really is no right way per se to start, but I'm going to show you how I go about coming up with something like this. And if you're interested in following along, I more than welcome you to do it. And of course, you can use any type of pen. I do recommend a pen to use just for the practice. I'm going to use a fountain pen, my favorite Muji fountain pen for this one. Fountain pens can get extremely messy, so you must be mindful of any smudging, any ink that gets on your hands. You don't want to smudge up your page, so be careful. I just filled this one with a fresh cartridge, relatively fresh. It's one that I had left over and it's ready to use. So the pen should be producing nice, clean, smooth lines. And I am using a 9x12 inch sheet of Bristol paper. It's 114-pound paper. So that means it's thick enough to hold different types of media, wash, ink, especially watercolors, anything of that nature. And you'll see, if there are any mistakes made, I'll probably make one intentionally just to show you how you can actually correct a mistake on thicker Bristol paper. So let's just jump into this, and you can start anywhere you want. I'm going to start right dead center with a nice weird shape, and it can be any shape. You can have curved lines, angles, whatever you choose. Whatever you choose, there is no right way of going about this type of art. And I don't know if it's necessarily Zentangle per se. It could just be a design piece, which it's probably more akin to, because in Zentangle you see a lot of repeating patterns and shapes, and that's definitely great practice for consistency, developing your ability to use the drawing tools cleanly, sharply, skillfully. But you don't have to, again, follow any particular patterns. When I do these pieces, I've done those kinds of pieces in the past with repeating patterns, and it is interesting, but it's not necessarily as fun a process. It gets kind of repetitive, gets kind of monotonous. It does look cool in the end, no doubt. But when I do a piece like this, I like to really kind of mix it up and just get a little bit wild with the placement of lines and the variety of just not necessarily objects, but shapes, and mixing up curved lines, angles, just the contrast, creating a kind of composition that is just interesting to look at. And again, there is no right way to approach this, but you can see a little bit of my decision making here. Filling in spaces, avoiding line tangents because they're just ugly generally, and they do flatten your image out even more. This is going to be a flat image. I'm not intending on adding dimensionality to any of these shapes in this particular piece because I want to demonstrate for you just a simple build, a simple design that you can come up with. And I do have to say, on this, with a fountain pen, if you notice the nib, the tip of the nib has, I'm going to show you here on this piece of paper. If you press hard enough, the two ends of the nib, they split like this, and it allows more ink to flow out from the end of the nib. So you can get some line quality variation, line thickness variation with a fountain pen. You have to be careful, especially, I mean, you don't want to break the nib, but if you are going for consistency, you will get a feel for how heavy or how much pressure you can apply on the nib. I've used this pen to create lots and lots of pieces like this, so I know exactly how hard to press without causing too much disturbance to the flow and the thickness. But ultimately, you just change the nib tip to get a thicker line. It's kind of like using a fine liner pen. You'll just up the size. It's in millimeters, so you'd have like a 0.1 millimeter If you want a thicker line, you'd go up to maybe like a 0.5, 0.7, 1.0. 1.0 millimeters is quite thick for a fine liner. And another tip too with fountain pens, or any pen for that matter, you can get away with it with fine liners, but it's not recommended with fountain pens. You never want to push. You don't want to push with the pen. You want to pull. You want to drag it. Ideally, you want to let the weight of the pen pull itself to create like the smoothest, cleanest line you can produce. You know, it's a meditative process. It's very nice just using your hands and feeling the pen as it drags, and just the sounds. It's truly a meditative endeavor doing anything like this, because you are thinking. And you know, unlike coloring, a lot of people like to color in these kinds of pieces, which is great, but when you're actually producing the line work for these pieces, it's a totally different thought process. There is a little bit more thinking involved in coming up with a piece that's going to look, again, it's going to look interesting. You know, as chaotic as it seems to be at the moment, there is still a sense of order. You know, I'm trying to create balance in a way between the curved lines, the angled lines, filling in negative space. You know, I might get a little bit crazy here and just like really let the line just extend out, flow out, nice and organic, flowing, and maybe link up to it. Maybe juxtapose the curve with some angle. See, I pressed down too hard and I lost the flow of ink. You know, and then in these kinds of negative spaces, you might want to start including more shapes. Might want to work around those spaces you've created. I mean, the sky is the limit with this. You can do anything you want. And of course, when you have these kinds of shapes laid down, you can go inside them and start adding even more detail. And you're getting a sense of how, you know, the span of time with which you'll have to invest to fill out a page. I mean, this is a relatively small sheet of paper, 9 by 12 inch. If you imagine doing this on like a 2 foot by 1.5 foot, like a newsprint style size of paper, it could take you probably a week, you know, like 30, 40 hours of continuous effort, but it's just going to look that much more grand when it's completed. But for now, you know, and you might want to go inside some of these bigger shapes and just fill them in any which way you want. You know, start adding like different designs of shapes, different kinds of patterns, maybe. Like really just get creative. This is where exploration becomes critical, so that you can end up with something that looks just fascinating to view. And I mean, you might go into this thinking, I just want this piece to be built out of curved lines, maybe just angular lines, angles, straight edges. I did a piece before that was strictly built out of straight lines, and that was pretty cool. It almost looked like a microchip. I'm going to post that one for you guys soon so you can see. I've done so many of these pieces, and I've done so much variation with them. And I mean, there's really no limit to how varied the design can end up, because you know, you're just playing with lines. You're going into it ideally with a fresh mind each time you approach this, you know, kind of like a clean slate. just hoping that, you don't want to repeat. If you do these pieces with frequency, you might find yourself repeating patterns you might have done before. Try and break away from that. Try and always keep it fresh, keep it new, keep it interesting, so that the process remains exciting. And again, you can see how I'm trying to keep it clean, and I'm not smudging anything. I'm being mindful where my hands are, so I'm not going over the wet ink. If you're afraid of smudging, take a piece of paper and just rest the edge of your hand on it, so that you don't accidentally smudge the fresh ink you've laid down. I mean, I went into this one blind. I just started drawing on this fresh page just to show you guys what you can get up to. And there's no wrong way to do it. I mean, like I said initially, I try to avoid line tangents. Like a line tangent, for example, would be if from this perpendicular spot right here, this point, if I drew another line out, it's going to draw a lot of attention to that point where all the lines are converging. And line tangents in like a landscape piece or any kind of representational piece really kill the dimensionality of the piece. So you want to be mindful of that. You don't want to, this piece, like I said, I'm not aiming for any kind of dimensionality with it. It's very flat, and that's by intent. But even so, even on a piece like this, you don't want to make those common artistic mistakes. There are rules in art. There are rules for making a piece look just objectively good. I mean, you could break those rules if that is the goal with that particular piece you're building. But generally, rules like perspective, form, structure, they don't necessarily apply with this kind of art, this kind of abstract art. But in representational pieces, they are imperative. So it's good to familiarize yourself with these technical rules. So you can break them on a whim, and you don't have to adhere to those rules when you're creating particular types of art. See, I've got this heavy point right here. I might want to try to replicate that elsewhere so that it creates a little more balance in this piece, because as I look at what I've drawn here just now, my eye is drawn to this area here. I mean, these flowing lines are really capturing attention because they contrast heavily with a lot of these angled sections here. So I might put another wild curve down here. And I mean, there's no limit to where it's going to go. I mean, just let the pen carry itself. Keep a steady hand and just let your imagination build as well. These pieces are really fun to do as well. If you're having any kind of artistic block, this is a great way to just dive into drawing for the sake of drawing. And, using ink on paper, this is just excellent pen control. Learning how to use the tool, learning how to maintain a steady hand, practicing a little bit of, drawing straight lines, curved lines. It's not necessarily easy to get these lines so nicely drawn out, but with enough practice, you can do it on a whim and end up with something that looks interesting. Just the process alone, like I've said, it's meditative, it's calming. I'd go so far as to say it's transcendental in a way, because it really just pulls you into the process, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a nice thing. You could say it's de-stressing in a sense, and it really is. It really is. Time just melts away. I don't even know how long this video is at this point. If you've stuck around this long, I am grateful and most appreciative. You've proven to be quite tenacious. I mean, persistent in trying to acquire knowledge from this video. I mean, that's what I hope everyone is doing. You know, if you've skimmed through to this section, that's great too. If I can help you get into drawing and just appreciate the process, that's something I always encourage someone that wants to get into drawing or learn drawing. Being able to appreciate the process is critical, because the process, you're going to spend a lot of time just doing it. So you want to be able to enjoy the process of doing it more so than chasing after that finished product. I mean, the final product is your vision made manifest on the page, but along the way, I mean, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be some critical thinking involved. And I'm not even talking necessarily about this kind of a piece. This piece, I had no idea what this was going to look like when I started it. So this is like kind of, you know, you're seeing it develop as I am, and it's really kind of fascinating that way. I'm just trying to capture these lines here for you as smoothly as I can. And sometimes even if you get kind of stuck with what you've got, just move away from it, draw a circle. Even draw a few circles across the entirety of your page, different sizes, because circles always catch attention. They heavily contrast, you know, a lot of the line work here. There are no edges on them, so they're naturally going to draw your eye in, and they're fun to build off of. So I've got, you know, the bulk of what I've done over here. I can move down here, maybe start building something interesting off of this, from this area. Just get really wild with the shapes. What's cool too is when you fill the page out, it's almost like you're looking at, I mean, something has emerged from your unconscious mind onto the page. So you might find all kinds of weird, like, symbols and abstract imagery, symbolic imagery that you inadvertently created, because you're just letting your mind kind of wander in a sense. But, you know, you're doing it with a purpose, and the purpose is to create what I possibly mistakenly call Zentangle art. It's I don't know what it is, but it's design. It's design art. It's a design piece. It's just what it is. Whatever it is, it's fun to do. So I thought I would share with you guys a bit of the process. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it here and continue in another video. And I'm going to continue exactly from here so you guys can see me continue to build this piece up. All right, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. I hope this was helpful in any way. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me anything, and I will reply. If you enjoy this kind of art, or art in general, stick around on my channel, consider subscribing, and you'll find lots of updates, lots of posts, especially with my short clips. I'm posting a lot of the practice warm-up work I've done over the years, and a lot of it's representational art, so lots of character designs, lots of layouts, lots of portraits. So yeah, I try to be as versatile with my art practice as possible, so that I can just become a stronger artist across every possible field of art: drawing, watercoloring, even doing this design work, just developing skill with inking and logo designs, all of that kind of work, graphic design. It's what I'm all about. So stick around, guys, and I will catch you for the next video. Cheers.